Today we're going to continue with Module 4. This is the second lecture in the series, and this one is about the history of propaganda. So before we get started with that, I want to talk a little bit about some of the extra credit that I've offered. This month, the Adobe Max conference is going to be happening towards the end of the month. So here is the website that will go to. If you don't want to use that link or anything, if it doesn't work, just type in max.adobe.com and you will come to this. This tells the dates of the actual conference, so you won't really be able to access those until November at the very end of October. So anyway, what I want you to do is I want you to pick one of the presentations that they have uploaded. There'll be, right now they're just pushing registration because it's still before the conference, but there will be a place you can click to look at the available online presentations. And let me tell you, it is a really fun-filled, packed information seminars. So even if you don't want the extra credit, it would really be worth your time to look at some of these things, because it's not, some of these surveys, it's not really just about art. I know that you probably think Adobe is just for people who are graphic artists. Well, they have a world of products that can help anybody that's in the advertising industry. And it's really good to know about this particular software because this company is the industry standard. We're going to start in ancient Greece looking at propaganda through the ages. It's been something that is very often used by humans. I think they started using it as soon as they were talking. So here is the first one we're going to talk about. He was in the 6th century BC, and his name is Pisistratus. I think I said that right. He pioneered two really powerful techniques for influencing public opinion. The first one was what today we would call victim hegemony, the description of one's self or one's group as the victim of unjust behavior on the part of others so as to gain public support, and meaning power. Okay, what happened was this guy wounded himself and his mules. He beat himself up and probably whipped the mules and who knows what all he did. He made it seem as though his enemies had set upon him with murderous intent. He asked the Athenian people for personal guards, which they gave him out of respect for his military successes in earlier battles. He then used this guard to take control of the Acropolis. His second technique was to persuade the public to believe that he was under the protection of a god. He had been expelled from Athens when his enemies became united against him. He took the opportunity of later divisions among them to make an alliance with one of his former opponents. On his return, he was accompanied by a tall and beautiful woman dressed in full armor and mounted on a chariot. He presented her to the people of Athens as the goddess Athena. They were so taken by her that they actually prayed to her. Two pretty powerful ways to try and get your way. The next one in ancient Greece that we're going to talk about is Pericles. He was in 431 BC. He kind of had a golden tongue, as we would say today. The way that he persuaded the Athenians was through a speech, honoring the Athenians that were killed in battle while also strengthening the resolve of survivors to continue to fight. So he made the people that were fighting look really bad, and how wonderful and perfect the Athenians were who were killed in battle. Another wartime example. The next one on the list is Plato. Now, I know that we all think of him as a philosopher. So his distinct contribution was in relationship to rhetoric and persuasion, and they're commonly associated with his philosophical analysis of these practices rather than his practice of the art itself. So he told people how to persuade people. Aristotle is the next one, also ancient Greece. He writes that that persuasion is based on three things: the ethos or personal character of the speaker, the pathos or getting the audience into the right kind of emotional receptivity, and the logos, or the argument itself, carried out by something like deductive reasoning. Like, for instance, if A and B are true, then that means C is true. So here are some highlights of, here are some key points that Aristotle pointed out to his scholars. First of all, and you'll kind of notice that there are some real parallels with what we hear in advertising. Know your audience. Know your subject matter. Simplify so that the message is understood by everyone. Repeat it so the message is not forgotten. Maintain attention. Sometimes raising the voice or vigorous bodily gestures will be needed. Number 6, secure appropriate emotive appeal. Number 7, maintain credibility. Number 8, undermine the credibility of your opponent, but without appearing mean. Number 9 is stress your strong points, deflecting attention from your weak points. And number 10, do the opposite towards your opponent, harping on his or her weak points, deflecting attention away from the strong ones. Could be a politician, could be an advertisement. It's a fine line. Now we turn to Rome, and the ruler we're going to talk about is Augustus. He was really cunning, and he was prepared to make use of the power systems while gathering real power for himself. He played up his connection to Julius Caesar to the hilt, helped by the fact that Julius had adopted him as a son in his will. So since Julius Caesar was considered to have been divine, a god, Augustus encouraged that idea that he was the son of God. Propaganda can be carried out in verbal and symbolisms. Augustus used a lot of coins and things like that with his image on it to keep his message of being a god forefront. Now we're going to go to the Middle Ages, all the way to the Enlightenment. And this was during the Crusades in the 12th century. And propaganda played a very important part in fueling the wars of the Crusades. Pope Urban II, in particular, made use of vivid imagery depicting gross acts of cruelty by the Turks to motivate Christians to take up the sword against them. Both Christians and Muslims believed that God was on their side and that their struggle would bring them eternal reward. They wrote numerous memorandas to interested persons and made use of ceremonial public debates. They wrote numerous memorandas to interested persons and made use of ceremonial public debates. Some attribute their success to the use of the slogan. They had a genius for making up simple slogans and with an easily retained formula. Repeated many times, a slogan became looked upon as a kind of truth. Next, we turn to France, in particular, Louis XIV in the 17th century. He used a number of notable techniques for bolstering his extraordinary power. He kept in touch with the general public through use of gazetteers, who served the double function of spreading news that the king felt that should be broadcast and bringing him back what the people said, their reactions, what they, whether they agreed or they didn't agree. Then we turn to the 18th century, and some critics of that established order that he started, such as Voltaire, started using pamphlets for promoting the ideals of which became known as the Enlightenment. So, printed pieces brought us the Enlightenment. Now we turn to the French Revolution in the 18th century. There was a transformation in propaganda. It just became more widespread, basically. Jean-Jacques Rousseau provided the intellectual groundwork for restructuring society by presenting a vision of the human being as innately good but deformed by an existing repressive social system. The French Revolution brought a transformation in propaganda. The value of tradition was forced to yield to that of progress, rational thinking, and the suppression of hierarchy. Widespread uses of festivals, engravings, medals, ribbons, songs, posters, crockery, even playing cards kept the revolutionary message in the people's minds. Symbols such as the Liberty Tree, and let me see, I think I have some examples of that. Let me move on to, yes, here we go. So, symbols such as the Liberty Tree, which is this one right here. Basically, this is just one example. There were trees with flags on it in all kinds of different ways. The pike staff, which is a very gruesome thing here, you see that they are holding heads on the end of a stick. There was a lot of beheadings during this revolution, so I guess there were lots of heads to stick on the end of a stick. Um, and the Liberty Cap. Oh my goodness, they were already handing out campaign hats in those days. Very odd looking hat, by the way. There also the Bastille and even pants represented a hard-working, ordinary, underprivileged citizen, pointing to the elimination of class differences stemming from feudal times. Then there was this group during the Revolution named the Jacobins. I probably said that wrong too. This group eliminated the modern press by taking it completely over. It was not a free press any longer. They took control of the theater, and they set up a National Institute of Music to review all of the music, and it needed to all foster military feelings, among other things. A committee of public instruction planned to produce primary textbooks which would associate favorable ideas in their choice of grammatical examples. Finally, we're going to touch on Napoleon. Censorship was an important part of his method for controlling opinion. I shall never allow the papers to say or do anything contrary to my interests, he said. And the way he acted validated what he said. By decree, he reduced the number of newspapers in Paris from 73 to 13. By 1811, there were only 4 remaining. Okay, we're going to stop this video right now. And in the next one, we're going to continue with a historic overview of propaganda. So I will see you next time. If you have any questions, please feel free to text or email me, and I'll see you in the next one.